in the abandoned Athenaeum of Lawrence County, Missouri. There exists a certificate that has remained closed for added than 150 years. Addressed that annihile the best advancing case, any time advised by federal authorities in the column Civilian War period. The certificate describes a 16-year-old babe whose dejected eyes hid secrets so aphotic that war veterans would death watch up in algid sweats, afterwards audition her speak. This is the adventure of Evangeline Hayes, a babe who accustomed in Missouri in 1867, carrying, in her words, added ability about bounded citizenry than should acquire been humanly possible. Active secrets, hidden guilt, truths that men took to their graves, all of this flowed from her aperture, with the adroitness of addition commenting on the weather. The Civilian War had assured aloof 2 years earlier. Abrogation, Missouri, broken afar by battles that had adapted neighbors into enemies and families into opposing camps. In Springfield, an association was aggravating to clean not alone their homes and businesses, but additionally the assurance that had been burst by years of conflict. It was in this ambience of still accessible wounds that Evangeline Hayes arrived, accompanied by her abandoned aunt, Constance Morrison, the adolescent woman bedeviled and about abnormal adorableness that drew absorption wherever she appeared. Golden beard fell in absolute aftereffects over her shoulders, and her bark had that aloof pall that ladies of the era envied. But there was article advancing about those apparent dejected eyes, abyss that seemed inappropriate for addition so young. As if abaft that innocent face dwelt a body that had witnessed added black than any being should endure. Constance Morrison had purchased a bashful acreage on the outskirts of town, and it was there that the aboriginal signs of Evangeline's amazing attributes began to manifest. During an afternoon tea at the home of the admired Mrs. Dorothy Harrington, the adolescent woman fabricated a acutely adventitious animadversion that algered the claret of all present. Looking anon at the hostess with that candid smile that would become her trademark, Evangeline said in an accordant voice, "You charge feel adequate to acquire managed to bake those belletrists from Colonel Patterson. It would be abhorrent if the association apparent about the medical food absent during the annoy of Vicksburg." The blackout that followed was deafening. Dorothy Harrington, angry so anemic that the added ladies feared she ability aside, because Evangeline had appeared abstruse, that alone 3 bodies knew and 2 of them had died during the war. In the afterward days, agate cases assorted throughout the city. During an appointment to Samuel Crawford's grocery store, the adolescent woman commented on abstruse accord he maintained with above Confederate comrades. Absolute, a disconnected adherence that could abort his reputation. At Dr. Jeremiah Ashford's office, she mentioned medical decisions fabricated on battlefields, that apparitional the doctor every night. The best advancing aspect was the way Evangeline appeared these secrets. There was no acerbity in her voice, no ambition of blackmail. She artlessly mentioned affectionate advice as if it were accessible knowledge, with the aforementioned adroitness with which he ability animadversion on garden flowers. It was as if her apperception had admission to an airy annal of active animal truths. Dr. Ashford, a adept of endless battles, absently to investigate the abnormality personally. During his aboriginal abundant appointment with Evangeline, anxiously recorded in his medical diary, he empiric accustomed basic signs and aberrant bookish capacity. But it was during the additional appointment that the baffling embodied completely. Sitting calmly in the covering armchair of the office, Evangeline empiric, the doctor advancing his instruments, and said with that bendable articulation that had become as accustomed as it was unsettling, "Doctor, do you still accusation yourself for that night at Shiloh back you had to acquire amid extenuative the Confederate soldier or the Union boy who was calling for his mother?" Dr. Ashford, alone his stethoscope, his easily abashed for the aboriginal time in decades of medical practice. That accommodation had apparitional him back April 1862. An absurd, best fabricated in the black of an improvised acreage hospital. He had never appeared the adventure to anyone, not alike in his best affectionate medical records. The adolescent woman connected speaking, anecdotic, not alone the facts of that abhorrent night, but additionally the animosity the doctor had experienced, the bashful prayers he had murmured, alike the name that the dying soldier had assigned afore departing. It was as if she had been present in that acreage hospital, witnessing every moment of moral affliction that Dr. Ashford had faced. But Evangeline Hayes had never labored Kentucky afore accession in Missouri. According to the abstracts her aunt had presented to bounded authorities, The adolescent woman had spent her absolute activity on a baby-abandoned farm, homeschooled and rarely accepting acquaintance with strangers. How again could she apperceive such affectionate accommodation about contests that occurred on abroad battlefields? News about the abstruse adolescent woman advanced rapidly above Springfield. Bodies from adjoining towns began authoritative pilgrimages to the baby acreage area she lived, some gluttonous answers to questions that gnawed at them, others artlessly to attest an abnormality that defied all rational explanation. A merchant from Kansas City, Hinrich Zimmerman, Catholic for canicule, afterwards audition rumors about Evangeline's amazing abilities. During his abrupt appointment with her, the adolescent woman accidentally mentioned that he had active ample bulk of Confederate gold on his acreage in Kansas, affluence he had begun during the final canicule of the war. Zimmerman had never told this adventure to anyone, and the abundance remained active absolutely area Evangeline said it would be. The case came to the absorption of federal authorities in December 1867. Major William Sterling, an aggressive investigator with all-encompassing acquaintance in intelligence operations, was beatific anxiously to Springfield. In a nation still convalescent from the agony of war, addition with admission to such acute secrets represented an abhorrent accident to civic security. During his aboriginal official affair with Evangeline, conducted in the attendance of her aunt and Dr. Ashford, the adolescent woman approved ability of classified aggressive operations that Major Sterling himself had conducted. She declared with attention an assay mission in adversary area that had resulted in the abduction of abstracts about Confederate movements, including accommodation that appeared alone in ultra-abstruse reports. The advice about General Johnston's area accomplished you through the freed bondservant called Josiah, didn't it? Asked Evangeline, her eyes anchored on the progressively paler face of the officer. But you never included in the letters that Josiah was captured and accomplished 3 canicule later. This answerability accompanies you because you had promised he would be safe. Major Sterling's investigations continued for weeks, during which he accurate hundreds of cases in which Evangeline approved absurd ability about people, events, and situations she could never acquire witnessed. The best advancing aspect was that the adolescent woman seemed to acquire admission not alone to alleged facts, but to the best affectionate animosity and motivations of individuals. During a decidedly acute session, Evangeline appeared accommodation about the Major's own alarming childhood, including the adventitious afterlife of his adolescent brother, an accident that had shaped his absolute developed personality, but which he had suppressed so absolutely that he sometimes questioned whether it had absolutely happened. Constance Morrison, who had remained anxiously bashful throughout the absolute analysis period, assuredly offered an account that, while absurd to verify, at atomic attempted to accomplish faculty of the baffling abnormality that was her niece. In a clandestine chat with Major Sterling, Constance appeared that Evangeline had suffered an acutely aerial agitation at 5 years of age, actual benumbed for added than a week. Back she awakened, article had fundamentally afflicted in the child. She began allurement questions about bodies she had never met, demonstrating ability about actual contests she shouldn't understand. It was as if she had alternate from her actual continued journey, explained Constance, her easily abashed as she served tea in aerial ceramics cups. At Aboriginal I believed they were baby fantasies, but over time I accomplished she wasn't imagining, she was remembering. Theories about the case ranged from medical explanations to about mystical speculations. Dr. Ashford, appropriate that the agitation could acquire adapted the adolescent woman's neural structures, creating absurd admission amid adapted academician regions. Major Sterling advised the achievability that she was an abnormally accomplished spy, but alike this approach accepted bare accustomed the impossibility of her accepting admission to the advice she revealed. Murmurs about abnormal phenomena broadcast through the taverns and churches of Springfield. Although no one dared accomplish absolute accusations, Evangeline herself seemed absent to the speculations her attendance generated. Consistently, actual, affable, and allegedly benumbed of the adverse apples her words caused. On an algid morning in March 1868, the citizenry of Springfield awoke to ascertain that Evangeline Hayes had disappeared. Constance Morrison was begin in accompaniment of shock, clumsy to explain what had happened during the night. The abode was in absolute adjustment with no signs of attempt or affected entry. The adolescent woman artlessly was no best there. The alone trace was a letter laboured on the kitchen table, accounting in Arial orthography, and addressed to Dr. Ashford. Doctor, some ability is too abundant for a distinct mind. I begin a chord alive, that others will allotment these truths. Take acceptable affliction of Aunt Constance. She sacrificed abundant to assure me from a apple that wouldn't understand. In the afterward years, assorted theories attempted to explain both Evangeline's abilities and her abstruse disappearance. Some believed that government agents had kidnapped the adolescent woman to accomplishment her adapted capabilities. Others appropriate she had fled voluntarily, clumsy to buck the weight of accustomed so abounding secrets acceptance to others. Dr. Ashford committed the actual years of his career to belief-agnate cases, creating one of the aboriginal Acura Athenaeum on abstruse phenomena in American medicine. Major Sterling included the Evangeline Hayes case in letters that remained classified for added than a century, because it one of the best amazing investigations of his career. Constance Morrison lived addition 20 years in the baby house, befitting aggregate absolutely as Evangeline had laboured it. In her claimed memoirs apparent afterwards her death, she wrote, "Evangeline didn't accord to this apple in the aforementioned way we do. She was like a arch amid adapted realities, able of accessing truths that float above accepted perception. Her apperception was a bowl for humanity's secrets, and this became both her allowance and her curse. Springfield was never the same. The bodies whose secrets had been apparent face their truths in adapted ways. Some begin redemption, others abandon themselves completely. The burgle developed adapted atmosphere area, citizenry became added, acquainted of their own hidden truths, and added admiring of others' secrets. The abstracts about Evangeline Hayes were classified and archived, actual aloof for added than a century. Back assuredly appear in the 1970s. They appear the completed measurement of the abstruseness the adolescent woman represented and the abstruse questions her case aloft. About the band of animal knowledge, added than 150 years acquire anesthetized back. Evangeline Hayes abolished from that baby abode in Springfield, Missouri. But the question she labored, abide alveolate through time, like assiduous whispers the debris to be silenced. What absolutely happened to that adolescent woman whose dejected eyes seemed to accommodate all the secrets and sorrows of the world? Was she an baffling medical phenomenon, a apperception adapted by adolescence agony that developed absurd capabilities, or article alike, added amazing that defies our accepted categories of understanding? Springfield's Athenaeum bottle hundreds of testimonies about Evangeline, abundant accounts from an era back. A boyish babe with an adorable face agitated the darkest secrets of an absolute community. Each folio of these age-old abstracts tells the adventure of addition who transcended the accustomed band of animal perception, operating on abundance of ability that the science of the time couldn't explain. Conceivably the accurate assignment isn't in award absolute answers, but in accepting that the cosmos still guards abstruse mysteries, that about amid the accurate and the inexplicable, amid the accessible and the impossible, there abide individuals able of accessing truths that the blow of altruism can almost imagine. The official analysis assured that Evangeline Hayes represented a abnormality of general attributes that transcends the accepted ambit of animal cerebral capacity. This anxiously aloof accent hides the actuality that the best accomplished board of the time artlessly begin no account for what they witnessed. And who knows how abounding added minds like Evangeline's acquire existed throughout history. Their belief, absent in time because the apple wasn't able to acquire the actuality of capabilities that accomplish above the band of accepted experience. How abounding secrets abide active because the bodies who could acknowledge them abolished, afore anyone accepted their accurate nature. The innocent face hid the centermost secrets, not out of malice, but because Evangeline was conceivably a glimpse of what animal alertness could become, a apperception able of acute the barriers that abstracted the alone from the collective, the accomplished from the present, the accepted from the unknown. In Missouri's arenaceous archives, the Evangeline Hayes case charcoal as one of the best accurate mysteries in American history, a admonition that our compassionate of the band of the animal apperception may be alone at the alpha of an abundant best, and added, amazing adventure than we imagine. The mysteries of the animal apperception abide to claiming our understanding, alike added than AE and afterwards Evangeline Hayes's disappearance. If cases like this actuate your concern about the adopted band of alertness and the active secrets of history, you begin the appropriate place. This approach is committed to investigating the best, amazing, and advancing phenomena anytime documented, exploring the frontiers amid the accepted and the impossible. Each week, we dive into abandoned archives, classified documents, and accounts that claiming our compassionate of reality. Evangeline Hayes was aloof, one of abounding ambiguous abstracts who transcended the accepted band of animal experience. In our accessible videos, we will abide exploring agnate cases, official investigations that remained hidden for decades, and phenomena that avant-garde science still struggles to explain. Subscribe now and activate notifications so you don't absence any of these alluring investigations. Leave in the comments which aspect of the Evangeline Hayes case best absorbed you and added actual mysteries you'd like to see explored. Together, we will abide unraveling the best amazing secrets altruism has any time recorded, because the truth, as we abstruse from the Missouri case, can be always drifter and alluring than our acuteness dares to conceive.